The Washington Commanders defensive line might be more reliable, but the secondary can end up being the reason this defense surprises people. That and more right now on Locked On Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I am David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders, here with you 5 days a week, but also covering the Washington Commanders locally for WUSA9.com, as well as for Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or view today and every day. Whether you're an everydayer or you're just coming through, I appreciate you. But to the everydayers, a special thank you goes out to everybody who makes this show a part of your daily routine. And if you haven't already, please make sure you are subscribed for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this episode. If it's your first time through the program, thank you for finding us. Hopefully you like it. Hopefully you come back again for more very soon. Coming up on today's episode, why Terry McLaurin's next contract should be built for a fast exit and which players have the inside track heading into training camp. But first, can you really trust the Commanders secondary over their defensive line? All of that is coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. The defensive backs have more youth, more upside, but the defensive line is still the safer, more experienced group. That is my overall thesis answer to the question posed by Dr. Wonderful. Mailbag episode here in the middle of the week on Locked On Commanders. Dr. Wonderful said, which unit should we have more faith in right now, defensive line or defensive back? And I think that the way I'm going to answer the question, it's really kind of just dependent, right? It's not so much which unit should you have faith in. It's more so what are you looking for in the units, right? The defensive line, more established, more veteran type players. It has a clearer rotational path, I think, than the secondary does. But the secondary, the DBs, they've got more potential. Certainly more youth, theoretically more health because they're younger, right? And cohesion is going to be a big question for that group as well. So when we look at breaking down the two sides and how we get to the answer, right? You look at the defensive line, you have a lot of experience on the interior. Deron Payne is now a veteran. Has been talked about by coaches, by other teammates as a leader in that room, even going back into last year. Javon Kinlaw obviously has been around for a little bit, bounced around from a couple of teams, went to, drafted by the Niners, went to the Jets. Now he's in Washington. So every experience teaches you something. He's got a lot of those. Jer'Zhan Newton, second year player, right? So not a lot of experience there, but certainly some upside, some talent there for the interior of the defensive line. And Javon Kinlaw is expected to also participate in the edge group. And the edge group has some other guys. Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Farrell has been around for a little bit. Dietrich Wise Jr., a wise, pun intended, veteran. Andre Jones Jr., still young, but has some experience. Jacob Martin's been around a little bit. Javonte Jean-Baptiste on the younger side. Jalen Holmes has been around. Norrell Pollard has been around a little bit. Practice squad guy more than anything. But then you've also got some other deep inside guy. Ricky Barber is a rookie, so no experience there. Sheldon Day, veteran. Eddie Goldman's been around a little bit. Carl Davis been around. Viliamo Fehoko Jr., not a lot of playing experience, but he's been around a little bit. He could also bounce inside, or he's going to play inside, but he could also bounce outside just a little bit too. So you have this kind of grouping, and we'll get into like who the main guys are and the starters and all that stuff here in just a little bit. But you have a lot of experience, a lot of traveling, right? A lot of well, it's experience, but you have experience in playing the game, but also experience in other systems with other teams in other locations. So two different types of experience going on that defensive line group. In the defensive backfield, a little bit less, right? Marshawn Lattimore, certainly a veteran coming from New Orleans. He spent a lot of his career there and his entire career there until last trade deadline when he came to Washington. Trey Amos is a rookie. Mikey Sandersill's in his second year. Jonathan Jones, certainly a veteran. Noah Igbenogany, a veteran. But after that, you've got some guys who have been in the league for a little bit, but the experience in actually playing is a little bit less, right? Kevon Seymour, Bobby Price, Alan George, and then you've got guys like Fentrell Cypress, the second out of Florida State, undrafted rookie. Carlin Vigors, another undrafted rookie. In the defensive backfield and the safety group, you've got some experience, but you've also got some very young guys. Will Harris has experience. Jeremy Reeves has been around for a little bit, especially for the franchise. but Percy Butler still fairly young. Quan Martin certainly still a young guy. Tyler Owens, Robert McDaniel, the undrafted safety, and Ben Nickel from a game experience standpoint, not as experienced. So depth is long, right? There's a lot of names there and certainly a lot of players, but outside of Marshawn Lattimore, who even Marshawn in the National Football League has proven himself. He's established his reputation, all these other things. Marshawn Lattimore, the Washington Commanders cornerback, still mostly unproven, right? So in some ways you can put him in both those categories. Jeremy Reeves has been around for a while, but this is really the first year we're hearing, at least early in the off season, before training camp, all that the intent to get him on the field substantially as a defender, not just a special teams player, is there. So we'll see, that. Quan Martin, only 1 full year as a safety, another full year playing DB, did a little bit of everything. So this is only his second year. Will Harris is kind of the proven guy, but again, new to this team, new to this scheme. So we'll see how he fits in and does all those things. So when you look across the secondary, even the guys you have that have been around a little bit, you're still kind of like, okay, where do they go necessarily? Up front, you have some new pieces, certainly, but you can kind of see the vision on where they're going to play, how they're going to play a little bit easier, right? Trey Amos, specifically, the rookie out of Ole Miss, provides tremendous upside. Mikey Sanders still provides tremendous upside, but even him, he's transitioning back inside after moving outside last year. Looked pretty good on the inside before he made that move outside, but he's going back in. So the measurement for kind of proving yourself, I suppose, kind of resets there a little. We know he's had the maturity, the preparation, the mentality to do it. That's not a question. As far as, we talked about him yesterday being kind of a tone center for the culture and for what the defense is trying to do. That certainly isn't going anywhere. But as far as his performance on the inside, something that we're going to see reestablished before we can really talk about him as being a known commodity in the secondary from a holistic standpoint, right? So again, that's how I come up with the answer that I come up with here. On average, just to kind of, support the theory just a little bit, on average, the defensive line has about 5.5 years of playing time per player. The DBs are coming in with about 3.8 years of experience per player. The D-line on average is about 2 years older than the secondary is on average in age. So just kind of shows you that level of experience certainly differs. The D-line has more established production. Again, a clear rotational depth to pull from, but the majority of the players, they kind of are who they are, right? Like there's not a lot of players on the defensive front that you look at and say, well, there's untapped potential here, or perhaps this guy could be great this way and all that stuff. They kind of are who they are. In the secondary, you've got a lot of untapped potential, much higher room for growth, much higher ceiling, as we like to say, but the floor could also be lower, right? Because if they don't pan out, that could be a problem. They're younger, in theory, healthier, Marshawn Lattimore excluded kind of, and the cohesion, right? A lot of new pieces, a lot of players playing different positions. We'll have to see how that all kind of comes together once training camp gets around. So which unit you trust more is one thing. Figuring out who actually has the inside track to start and be main contributors, that's where the real answers begin on how this defense is going to take shape. And that's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are heating up, and whether you're watching extra innings, major golf shots, or even counting down to football season like we are, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. I was watching Washington Mystics basketball on Tuesday afternoon. Very fun game, very exciting finish to that one as well. You're already tracking depth charts. You're already tracking breakout candidates. So why not make the action pay off too? With FanDuel, you can put your football instincts to work or lean into the summer grind. Bet on baseball, golf, WNBA, international soccer while we wait for camp battles to all shake out. I've been using FanDuel to follow my favorite matchups and futures. And with all the daily promos, same game parlays, which I love, live betting options, it keeps getting interesting every single day. Whether I'm watching preseason reps or checking in on a 1-0 count in the bottom of the ninth, you can never really have enough to not look at on FanDuel. And here's the best part. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Predicting starters is one thing, but knowing who's going to get real reps with the ones, that's going to tell you who the coaches really trust. And that's obviously something we've been looking at during OTAs, during the mandatory minicamp, and we're going to continue to look at into training camp. However, always have to give this grain of salt, one, to myself as well, but also to listeners and to viewers and to fans who attend practices. Training camp, they mix things up. You're going to see guys get reps with the first team that are not necessarily first team guys for various reasons. Sometimes they just want to go give them work. Sometimes it's because, well, maybe this starter, right? Starter A is not practicing right now, and we don't want to take the second team guy, move him up to the first team. We want to keep the second team with the second team. So we're going to take this third team guy, put him in the first team so that we can keep that second team integrity intact. So there's a lot of different reasons these guys get these reps. Certainly some of it can mean something, but sometimes it doesn't mean a lot. So it's going to be a little bit tricky. But this question comes from Ravi and a little bit from Dr. Wonderful as well. Ravi asking, who has the inside track for starters and primary backups on offense and defense? Dr. Wonderful, who is on the D-line with the ones and twos? Could there be surprises among the starters? So you're looking at the depth chart. We're not going to go too deep into this thing, right? Obviously, your quarterback room, Jaden Daniels is at the top, Marcus Mariota, Sam Hartman, Josh Johnson, backing them up. Running backs, Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. Right now, I'm going to keep the depth intact from what it was last year. Jeremy McNichols and then Chris Rodriguez Jr. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the rookie out of Arizona, certainly can make some noise. Michael Wiley, Demetric Felton, Kaz Allen. I wouldn't count any of these guys out. Training camp is going to be a lot of fun with the running back group. Wide receivers, Terry McLaurin, still number one guy whenever he's around. Debo Samuel, Noah Brown, hopefully escape that injury. We'll find out for sure here in the next couple of weeks. Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, Michael Gallup, if he's healthy, right? We haven't seen him in just a little bit because he's dealing with his own injury. KJ Osborne, Chris Moore, Ja'Cory Brooks, Jacoby Jones, Michael Strawn. A lot of contenders there for maybe one or maybe two spots, honestly. Terry, Debo, Noah, Luke, and Jalen, that's 5 spots already. So if you go 6 deep, you're basically talking about one receiver spot open up for grabs. Tight end, Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott, same depth chart you had last year, same depth chart you can have this year. Colson Yankoff, if they have a 4th tight end on the active roster, he's the favorite. Cole Turner, Lawrence Cager, Tyree Jackson following up behind them. O-line, Laramie Tunsil, Brandon Coleman, Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti, Andrew Wiley / Josh Connerly Jr. from left to right. I've already told you that's my expectation. Kind of basically sticking with that until we haven't seen any other practices since I said that. So I have no reason to come off that spot. But that leaves you Trent Scott, Nate Herbig as your primary backup guys. Michael Dieter certainly there. Bobby Hart, Julian Good-Jones, Chris Paul, Foster Sorrell, Tyree Phillips, Timothy McKay, very exciting rookie that we haven't got to see a lot of because he's coming off of a torn pec. We'll see when he gets healthy. And then, of course, Sam Cosmi is on the injured list. Defensively, this is where things get a little bit interesting. We dive into Dr. Wonderful's question just a little bit. Interior defensive line. The order I'm going with right now, and I know, and this is the hard part about D-line, right? I was on the radio not that long ago. I was asked the same question. Who's going to be the starters on the defensive line? I don't know that you have just like a starting lineup because you're going to have 3 down linemen, 2 down linemen, 4 down linemen, 5 down linemen sometimes. I'm going to kind of just give it a pecking order, so to speak. So if you want 2 starting interior D linemen, the first 2 names are your starters as far as I'm concerned. If there's only 1, then the 1 guy. If there's 3, then the 3 guys, right? So just kind of, it's flexible, right? Joey Jr. said last year, there's not just 11 starters. I can't remember the exact number. He said sometimes I say like 15, sometimes I say 21. So there's a wide range that I paraphrase him as saying. So if you remember it exactly, by all means, remind me. But it's more than 11, right? There's more than 11 starters on defense. Interior defensive line. I think Javon Kinlaw is going to be your number 1 guy. I just do. I take that because 1, the comments about him. 2, the fact that he barely practiced during OTA's mandatory minicamp and it was not injury related. Kind of tips your hat on what they think of him, right? Deron Payne, I think, is your 2nd guy, at least to start off with. Johnny Newton, Jerzon Newton, I think, is your 3rd guy. Certainly could jump into that 2nd spot. You follow that up by Eddie Goldman, Sheldon Day, Carl Davis, Norrell Pollard, and then Ricky Barber, the rookie, the undrafted guy out of USF or UCF, one of the Florida schools. I apologize. I think it's UCF. He's just tailing in the end for me right now. We'll see how he does in camp. Defensive ends, Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise Jr. A little bit different here. I think those are your top 2 guys, right? Like, I don't think there's any like combination here. I don't think there's going to be situations where, well, maybe we see Cleveland Farrell more than we see Dietrich Wise. No, I think Dorrance Armstrong Jr., Dietrich Wise Jr. are your 2 top D ends. Behind them, Cleveland Farrell, Jacob Martin, Joe Jr. told us he's going to play a little bit hand in the dirt. He's going to play a little bit stand-up outside linebacker. So it's going to be a little bit, DN, a little bit linebacker, but he's in that mix, obviously. Jalen Holmes is going to play inside, but I also think he's going to play outside. Javonte Jean-Baptiste. We got Andre Jones, Viliami Fehoko, and then Maguran Yanga, the international pathway player. He's on there. Don't expect him to get a lot of playing time, any playing time really this season. Developmental guys, certainly. The surprise guy to watch, I don't know if there's really going to be any surprises in the starting rotation. I mean, I would be surprised if Cleveland Ferrell started over Dietrich Wise Jr., right? Like I would be surprised if Eddie Goldman became like the number 2 D tackle. But I don't necessarily foresee those things coming. If there is a surprise player here, I think it could be Ricky Barber. And rookie, undrafted, I'm not saying like he's going to be like your starting guy, right? But certainly he's got some athleticism. He's got some burst off the line of scrimmage. I think he can certainly stand out in the right environment, in the right scenario. I do think he's probably a priority like practice squad candidate coming into training camp, but he is someone who, by way of having some ability to jump up and also having some raw ability when you look at him on tape, I think he certainly could potentially be a little bit of a surprise this year during training camp. Linebackers, obviously Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu are going to be your top 2 guys. Jacob Martin, again, is going to get some outside linebacker reps, so he's going to be a quote-unquote linebacker from time to time. Next man up after that, Jordan McGee clearly is your next off-ball linebacker. I think he's got some pass rushing juice as well, not like as energetic necessarily as Frankie Louvu, but I certainly think he's got some chops there too. Wouldn't be surprised to see him lined up outside and get Bobby in the middle of the field, Frankie on one side, Jordan McGee on the other side. I think you're going to get more 3 linebacker sets. This season, Joey Jr. even actually referenced it at one point that they were putting together a package that had Bobby, Frankie, and Jordan on the field all at the same time last year. And then Jordan's injury just kind of derailed that whole thing. Dominique Hampton came out of Washington as a safety last year, cross-trained as a linebacker. So he's someone that we're obviously keeping an eye on to see how his development is going. Kane Medrano, the rookie out of UCLA. Nick Bellore, the special team stud. Cam Arnold, undrafted rookie. And Ali Kahu, another undrafted rookie. Ali Kahu, undrafted rookie out of UCLA as well. So some good linebacker depth, certainly some potential, kind of like the DB room, right? Like you got to know who some guys are, but then the rest of the guys, a lot of potential, not a lot proven so far in that group. So that's kind of how I see the pecking order heading into training camp. Of course, things can always get shaken up. We'll be on the lookout once training camp begins July 23rd. I believe that's public knowledge. Training camp reps can shape the depth chart. It is now, right? But long-term value comes down to how you structure your biggest contracts. That conversation coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Wide receiver Terry McLaurin just had the best touchdown season of his career, if you ask me. And he didn't set career highs everywhere, but I think it's the best overall season of his career. But that might be exactly why his next deal is going to be built to end a little bit early if it needs to. So, question came in from Clay. With a player like Terry, where the concern is about him aging and falling off, would it make sense to front load his contract with more money at the start of the extension and less in the later years to justify a longer deal? It's a great question. And it's one that doesn't have a single straight up answer because basically all contracts are essentially front loaded, right? Like every NFL contract is essentially front loaded in a cash aspect. So really this is a cap versus cash conversation. However, let's stick to the spirit of the question. Is there a reason that Terry McLaurin's contract should be front loaded, protect the team against a fall off late in the extension? So Terry McLaurin turned 29 in September of 2024, played all 16 games after he turned 29, posted 80 catches, 1,079 yards, and 13 touchdowns as a 29-year-old. Though he turned 29, officially it was his 28-year-old season because he started the season 28, at least. And again, there's no official, it's not like a data point. But when you look at certain statistical sites, right, like True Media, for example, the age that the player is on September 1st is the age that season is attributed to. So for Terry McLaurin, who turned 29 in September of 2024, he was 28 in September 1st. It's his 28-year-old season. This season will be his 29-year-old season, even though he turns 30 in the middle of September. All right. So it's whatever. It's splitting hairs. What history says about 29-year-old wide receivers, however, since 2015, in the last decade, 148 wide receivers have had 50 or more targets for their team at the age of 29 or older. Of those 148 wide receivers, 34 of them went on to have 1,000-yard seasons. That's only 23%. 9 of them had 10-plus TDs, double-digit touchdowns, 6%. Only 7 had both, 1,000-yard season, double-digit scoring. That's 5% of the last 10 years worth of all wide receivers that are 29 years or over to play a season in the National Football League. And that counts, like if you're 29, 30, et cetera, right? How Terry compares with 29-year-olds entering their 7th season. Because again, Terry is 29. He's entering his 7th season. Only 44 wide receivers in the last decades have been in that situation where you enter year 7 as a 29-year-old and had 50 or more targets for their team, right? That's kind of the criteria we're going with. Only 44 guys in the last 10 years have done that. Of those 44 guys, 15 of them had 1,000 yards. So that's a better percentage, 34%. The touchdown percentage and all that stuff is roughly about the same. It's a little bit under 5%. 2 of them had 10-plus touchdowns. Those two guys had both. Those 2 guys, Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. Is Terry McLaurin as talented as Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill? Not the same style of player. Got it. In fact, it's kind of a Goldilocks situation. Like Devontae Adams is your big, physical, athletic, long, wingspan dude. Tyreek Hill is your short, small, compact speedster. And Terry McLaurin's right in the middle. So it's kind of the Goldilocks of the 3 receivers. So maybe that's the sign. Maybe Terry's going to be the middle, the just right Goldilocks, of the 3 receiver bears here. And he's going to be the third guy to do both. But when you look at a negotiation standpoint, right, the team perspective is going to be those percentages. The percentages are really low. History is going to tell the team that the chances of Terry McLaurin having a 1,000-yard season and a double-digit touchdown season, not high. The chances of him having a 1,000-yard season, a little bit higher. The chances of him having a double-digit touchdown season, not very good. The fact that Terry McLaurin's first double-digit touchdown season came in 2024, just the year before you're trying to get this extension, works against him if you're the team. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, each of those guys had at least 2 double-digit scoring seasons before they played their 29-year-old season. All right. That makes Terry's repeat odds look historically slim. And that's what teams are going to do, is use historical data to project future potential. The agent for Terry McLaurin, as he should, is going to say, well, Terry McLaurin never had even above average quarterback play until last year, and certainly didn't have consistency in his scheme or an effective scheme to play under. So that's a big difference. And because of those things being here now, that production is going to be good. And had he had those things in the past, his skill set would have produced numbers like Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill was getting. That's what the agent is going to say, as he should. The realistic career arc, based on similar wide receivers in his trajectory, looking at like Anquan Boldin, Andre Johnson, certainly 2 guys very good in their days, considered some of the best in their times playing football as wide receivers entering the age 30, like McLaurin is, with similar type of numbers. Not likely to be consistent double-digit TD threats post 30. Each of those 2 receivers produced 2,000-yard seasons after they turned 30. Anquan Boldin's came like 4 years after. He was like 34 when he was playing for the 49ers, produced 1,000-yard seasons. Andre Johnson, I want to say it was his 30 and 31-year-old season, he produced 1,000 yards and all those things. But certainly even those guys, a little bit of fall off after turning 30, right? So the front-loading benefits. It leverages Jaden Daniels' rookie scale quarterback contract. Pay a little bit more money now to your star receiver. That way, that chunk of that money is gone when Jaden needs a new contract here in a couple of years. Certainly makes a lot of sense. Reduces the future cap burden when Terry is into his 30s, right? 32, 33 years old. All that stuff when the risk of decline is greater, and could justify a longer deal. Like Cam said in his question, 4 or 5 years without crippling flexibility in later years. Terry should like it because it gets to the point where, if it gets to the point where he and the team basically think they're no longer really a fit together, then there's not a lot of dead cap tying him down to the team, and the team can let him go and he can go seek out other opportunities, kind of like Anquan Boldin did, right? He signed a deal with Baltimore when he's like 30, ended up going to the Niners at like 33, 34, balled out for them a couple years, right? Looking at some of Adam Peters' more recent multi-year deals, highly likely the first year is going to be relatively low, while the second year has a big jump, and then the deal plateaus. For example, Sam Cosmi's extension. This season is the first season of Sam's extension. That extension this year cost $10.5 million against salary cap. Next year, it jumps to $20.5 million. Then it's 20, then it's 20.1. So you see what I'm talking about. $20 million of Sam Cosmi's $74 million extension was bonus money. That's close to 20%. And nearly half of all of his guaranteed money was bonus money. So when I tell you that most NFL contracts are front loaded, that's what I'm talking about. Because that bonus money, we're talking about cash versus cap. In a cash perspective, that $20 million bonus that Sam Cosmi got for signing his extension, that money, and I can't tell you when it got paid, but I'll just say traditionally gets paid out by the ownership within 12 months of the player signing that contract, sometimes as quickly as 30 days. So Sam got that $20 million bonus within the last 12 months. From a salary cap perspective, that $20 million bonus gets spread through the life of the contract from an accounting standpoint. Okay. So that's what we talk about with cash versus cap. And the bonus gets spread evenly, like regardless. As far as like yearly salaries and incentives and all that stuff, certainly that's where things can get done. But again, the guaranteed money always gets front loaded in NFL contracts. And I say always, but you know, if there's like one or two contracts that are outliers here that you could find, certainly they could possibly be out there. But typically, that's what I'm saying when I talk about cash versus cap. Typically, the contracts are usually front loaded anyway, and certainly it makes a lot of sense to do so for all the reasons we just talked about. So like I said before with Kinlaw, any new deal you see, because you look at Sam Cosmi, go back to Sam Cosmi's contract, the reason they do is it gives them flexibility, right? If the Washington Commanders want out of the Sam Cosmi deal, they can do so next year, and they will lose no more than $7 million. Like at worst case scenario, the Commanders would eat $7 million in dead cap next year if they move on from Sam Cosmi. They would lose $7 million if they move on from Sam Cosmi. That's worst case scenario. And there's three other options to where they actually save a little bit of money. So that's why it's like same thing with Kinlaw deal. Any new deal you see, if it's done right by a smart front office, which Washington Commanders finally have, it could be 4 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 3 years. It's a 1 or 2 year deal max, really, at the end of the day. And it all happens because guarantees are front loaded. Those bonuses are front loaded. The guarantees are front loaded. That is how the contracts are done. So the Commanders are banking on upside across the roster, but smart teams also prepare for drop-offs before it's too late. That's going to do it for today's episode. Great questions coming through the mailbag. Next time on Locked On Commanders, we're going to start looking at how the new pieces on the Commanders roster might help solve some of the challenges we recapped and revisited earlier this week from 2024. In the meantime, if you got further questions or comments, you can text them to me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders insider at joinsubtext.com/Locked On Commanders. Happy new alternate uniform day. If you're listening to this Tuesday night, tomorrow is going to be the day, or Wednesday, new alternate uniform day. We'll talk about that as well. Certainly, I'm confident it's going to hit the mark. Thanks for making Locked On Commanders your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting as the Commanders weigh experience versus upside on defense and navigate the value of star contracts like Terry McLaurin's. Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino break down every NFL team and how they balance roster development, cap management, and long-term success. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you're getting this podcast. To the everydayers, I see you every day. I appreciate you every day, and I thank you every single day. Until next time, everybody, stay safe. Be kind to one another. We'll talk again soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.